Dominance. That's the nothing personal word of the day for Thursday, August 21st, 2025. Today's episode is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. We had an opportunity to watch Shohei Ohtani pitch, and when you have that opportunity, you take it. When you see a chance, you make it. They were playing the Colorado Rockies. Shohei Ohtani takes the mound. Everything seems great. He's throwing with great velocity this year, more so than usual. He's sitting around 98 on his four-seamer. Not easy to do. Puts him in the top 5, top 6 in terms of starters and their velocity with their four-seam fastball. And then he gives up a two-spot. Shohei Ohtani allowed 5 earned runs against the Colorado Rockies in only 4 innings. And the Colorado Rockies beat the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers have a 1-game lead over the San Diego Padres in the division, the National League West. It's like a 2-game lead because here at Nothing Personal, you're smart enough to know that if you own the tiebreaker, which the Dodgers do, that means they've won the season series against the Padres. So the Padres can't tie the Dodgers. They have to pass the Dodgers. So a 1-game lead is like a 2-game lead. Not too shabby. However, it's certainly not comfortable. The reason why I say dominance is when Ohtani took the mound last night, my brain started working overtime. And I started thinking about, and this may come from the fact that I spent some time recently with some old baseball executive friends of mine, and we've been talking a lot about contracts, a lot about money, a lot about the concept of being marked to market, a concept that we've spoken about before on this show, where you say to yourself, if you had one player to start with, who would it be? Would it be Paul Skeens, a number 1 starter making the minimum, or would it be Shohei Ohtani, where you are paying him not $2 million, that's not fair. You're paying him the equivalent, we always say, of $44 to $45 million, but you're getting a starter and an MVP hitter at the top of your lineup, hitting for power, slugging, etc. And the concept of dominance interests me because in baseball, having dominant players is not how you win. Having dominant players is how you have an exciting moment at the ballpark. You have anticipation every 9 at-bats when someone comes up and you get off the hot dog line and you make sure you watch the at-bat. Or every 5 days when a starting pitcher pitches, you make sure that that's the game of a homestand you go to, or that's the game you watch when you don't watch every game. That's why starting pitching becomes so important in the marketing of the game. If you think about it, they're the only 2 people out of 18 who are announced in advance. That's the purpose of announcing starting pitchers, not necessarily for setting the line, but what it's supposed to do is to set the expectation of, for a ticket buyer, who am I going to see when? What game shall I choose to go to? And 9 out of 10 people surveyed tell you they look at the starting pitcher. So when you have an opportunity to have someone like Shohei Ohtani, can we call him dominant? For the 8th time in 96 career starts against the Rockies, he allowed 5 earned runs or more. How is that dominance? The fact that he has a double and he hits in the leadoff, playing both ways, does that definitionally make you dominant? And that's the debate that we were having. Can you describe someone who goes 2 ways, who plays offense, doesn't play the field, but pitches? So 2 out of 3 ain't bad, Meatloaf. That has to be the definition, because you can't say that dominance is defined as being a pitcher and a hitter, because no one does that. In the National League, back before the universal DH, we had good hitting pitchers. Go back and look at Greg Maggs. Go back and look at Madison Bumgarner. Go back and look at Dontrelle Willis. There were pitchers who actually could hit. Doesn't mean they did hit. It means it wasn't what we would call an AO in the lineup, an automatic out in the lineup. News alert. We would even accept an AO at shortstop if they had a good glove back in the day. You can accept an AO behind the plate as your backup catcher back in the day because they were so. Look at Maldonado with the Astros. A no-hit catcher can be valuable, can even be dominant. And so the definition of dominance, it doesn't mean you're at best in class in any of the disciplines, but it means that you are A, you are mark to market, and B, you can be counted on at any given moment to do something spectacular that will help your team win. And that's the key. That will help your team win. Ohtani's coming from an organization, the Angels, where he didn't win at all. There are examples, tons of examples throughout baseball of dominant players who were not on winning teams, who did not win. And there's examples of players who have multiple rings who are fine. They're fine. They were in the starting lineup of several world championships. Good players. I'm not even sure they're Hall of Very Good, certainly not Hall of Fame, but they have multiple rings. So the question got to this. If you had a choice to have a dominant player, or if you had a choice to have a collection of good players, none of whom were dominant, who all added up and gelled to make your team win, which way do you go? It's clear. From a money standpoint, a dominant player, a superstar, can add incremental cash, incremental sales. Every 5 days with the pitcher. If it's someone on a home run chase on a bad team, you're going to draw attention. You're going to get fans. So you can have an example where a dominant player on a subpar team is still a needle mover. But then doing the math, the conclusion is that it's all about team success. That is what you have to have in baseball. That is the way. And that is a big difference between how fans may think and how executives may think. If you're a fan, you want continuity. You want the players you're used to. You want players to be on your team for as long as possible. You want a relationship with your players. If you're an executive, you're looking at what the collection of players is doing. You're looking at the results, and you're saying to yourself, I like these guys. They're good names, but we're not winning as a team. We're not making the playoffs. Therefore, changes have to be made. There are teams that can be very reactive to, because it's mostly comes from the owners, very reactive over a short sample size. Baseball is a large sample size sport. You need to have an absolute base of data and stats in order to make the right decision. You can get right, luckily. But to really make the proper evaluation, forget analytics, forget what the simulations say, you got to watch the player. When I'm watching Ohtani last night, this is not the norm. He got hit, by the way. He got hit in the thigh. It didn't hit his knee. He's going to get an off day today because God knows he needs an off day, and it was scheduled anyway. But when I'm watching Ohtani and I'm watching him pitch for the Dodgers, even I, king of the low payroll small market team, even I thought to myself, this is so good for baseball that Ohtani right now is on the mound for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Right now. And what he can do by being able to do this through October. And it's funny because there was a conversation yesterday that Dave Roberts and Mark Pryor had, because Mark Pryor, the pitching coach for the Dodgers, came out and said, yeah, we'd consider having Ohtani out of the bullpen during the playoffs. Of course, that is not happening, and it was quickly sort of, Mark Pryor was covered up by Dave Roberts and by different leaks to the media when there was a reminder given to the Dodgers, hey, listen, if you've got a bullpen arm and that bullpen arm comes out of the game, that player is out of the game, which means Ohtani wouldn't be able to keep hitting. Remember, Ohtani has a special rule that was made just for him, although, of course, we claimed. It's like the Pete Rose Hall of Fame eligibility rule. That wasn't for Pete Rose. That was for everybody on the permanently ineligible list who's croaked. The Ohtani rule, not for Ohtani, for anybody who's a two-way player and designated as such. I can't think of another one, Coca, but it must be me. So the Ohtani rule says, remember the advantage they have. You're only allowed a certain number of pitchers on your staff. Ohtani doesn't count toward that 13. They get to have a 14th pitcher. It's a huge advantage. But the Ohtani rule is also very clear that if he does not start, then him coming out of the game eliminates him from the game. When he starts, he can go from pitcher to designated hitter. And even if he pitches 1 inning, it's got to be the first inning. And that rule is not going to change before this year's postseason. There is no chance Shohei Ohtani will pitch out of the bullpen this postseason. Maybe in the ninth inning at home, on the road, I should say, the ninth inning, the bottom of the ninth, when the team's on the road. Because then, well, what if a tie comes? Then it's bats out of the game. No, I changed my mind. He's not going to pitch out of the bullpen. You cannot afford to have his bat out of the lineup, even if you've got a 3-run lead, because what if Ohtani blows the lead and it's a tie and you go to extra innings? There's no ghost runner in the postseason. He could be missing 2 or 3 at-bats. Ohtani will be in the rotation for the Dodgers, and it's pretty cool because it's dominant. I struggled with the draft as a team president. I struggled because I wasn't a scout. I struggled because my projection abilities are based on business. I can interview somebody and say, oh, that's somebody who really has a chance to be a C-suite executive one day. Or that's somebody who's going to lead our team in sales. Or that's somebody who's going to come up with great ideas in marketing. Or that's somebody who I know I can trust with my PR issues. I wasn't good at going to watch a 16-year-old baseball player as a 10th grader in high school and say, oh, that's a 30 home run guy. I don't know how to do that. Over the years, the more players I saw, I was able to be better. But by no stretch was I good at a scout, because I wasn't a scout. Scouts' jobs in the draft, brutal. Not only do you have to figure out whether or not a young player is going to be good, like will the young player develop and be one of the few who makes it through your system and into the big leagues, because that's how you're measured, not by how many minor league championships a player wins or how many home runs they hit at Double-A. Nope, don't care. We were very clear with our scouts. Congratulations, we're very glad we won a Double-A championship. I love my Carolina Mudcats ring. I do. It means something to me. But people who max out at Double-A, no, that's a failure. So when you're out there drafting, you have to do 2 things. Not only do you have to be able to project, but then you have to be able to understand who the person is, which is why analytics in drafting to me is always a problem. It's a problem everywhere. Analytics is not the answer to everyone's problems. And all of the teams who are all analytic, they're going to pay for it in the long run, because eyes matter, ears matter, and so does your mouth. And what these scouts do is they're out there talking to players. They're talking to coaches. They're talking to family. They're getting to know the kid. A story just came out yesterday a story that I totally missed. And it's a story regarding the Yankees. The New York Yankees drafted a player from Nebraska in the 5th round this past July. And I'd never heard of Core Jackson at all. I wasn't aware that he was a freshman at University of Nebraska and then transferred to the University of Utah. I wasn't aware why. And it came out yesterday that Core Jackson, when he was 17 and a freshman at the University of Nebraska, that in a drunken stupor one night as a freshman, he went to a closed door in a dormitory, and drew a swastika. It turns out that he was blackout drunk, apparently, when he drew the swastika. It also turns out he has no recollection of the incident or why he did it. And why this is a story now is it's just being discovered that the Yankees, with a Jewish team president, Randy Levine, in a city that has a way higher than average Jewish population, drafted a kid who some would say is an anti-Semite. This kid, Core Jackson, owned up to what he did. This kid, Core Jackson, told teams who were talking to him about the draft while he was at Utah. They were interviewing him. Turns out He told the teams what had happened because he didn't want them to discover it, because teams that are smart are doing due diligence and then making decisions based on the facts that they find. The head of scouting is a guy named Damon Oppenheimer for the Yankees. And he came out and he had quotes about this situation saying that he has shown his accountability here. I think his actions have shown his remorse. He's acknowledged it. He's taken the right steps to continue to learn, to understand what he's done. They drafted him because he had gone through sensitivity training. He had told every MLB team what he had done. He did a 5-week course with a yeshiva, which is an Orthodox Jewish university, a yeshiva graduate student. The person he forgot to talk to was his agent. He didn't tell his agent. His agent did not drop him as a client. His agent tried to help him once he found out, get the sensitivity training, rehabilitate his image, and make it so he would get drafted. And this is not a schlepper shortstop. The question is, what if he had said on a board and written it in graffiti on the dorm room of a black student, if he had graffitied the N-word? Would there have been forgiveness? What if he had said the slang word that Myles Leonard said, the K word, which Myles Leonard said during a Twitch stream that ended, for all intents and purposes, Myles Leonard's career? Well, Myles Leonard has since owned up to it, rehabilitated, befriended the Jewish community, followed up, been a part of it, and now actually is a country music singer. Side note. How do we dismiss the actions of a child? We would draft kids who we know had taken drugs before, and sometimes we got burned and sometimes we didn't. How is it that we can say that the action of a 17-year-old can be dismissed as that of a freshman in college who just is learning about freedom and learning about alcohol? How do we differentiate people who, when they're on Ambien and say racist things, and we say, no, they are racist, because when you're on Ambien, it only heightens who you already are. It doesn't create who you may be. Is it the age? Is it the item? Is it the word? I am all for rehabilitation and forgiveness when possible. I am all for consequences. My question for the Yankees would have been simple as president of that team, as a Jewish president of that team, which is, are you suggesting that there is no one else we can draft in the 5th round to put into our system? I am very happy that he has owned up to his actions, that we may have created one more smart person who understands what a swastika is, though I'm not sure people draw swastikas not knowing what it is on a Jewish person's dorm in theory, but I digress. I would have said, why us? There are plenty of other fish in the sea. Let someone else take them, and if no one else takes them, no one else takes them. Why do we have to be the organization? And the reason why I would take that point of view is not to punish the kid. It's not to say that the kid doesn't deserve a shot because he's a good baseball player. The reason that I would not have taken Core Jackson, who is now the Yankees' number 18 prospect. He's in high A right now. He's young. He's a kid. Why would I not have taken him? Because I don't want to sit there in front of the media and have to talk about all the rehabilitation he's done and that was my threshold. Because then it opens me up to interpreting what everybody's rehabilitation is as it relates to everything they do, and I'm not allowed a third rail. And I'm a human being. I have a third rail. There are certain things that if you say to me, you don't get another chance, period. There's certain things that if you do not get another chance. It may not be your criteria for what a third rail is, and it likely isn't. But we each are entitled to our own third rails. There are certain things that we all tend to agree on as a third rail. Hey, don't shoot up at your desk at the office. That's, I think, pretty much we all agree with that if you're caught with a needle in your arm at 3:30 in the afternoon at your desk, you're likely to lose your job. I don't think that's a crazy concept. I don't think that's controversial. It gets a little hazy outside of the needle. Now, there's certain other things that we can say, well, that doesn't seem hazy. Bringing a gun and brandishing a gun and threatening your coworkers with a gun, that may seem like a third rail. Depending on the company, I guess. Depending on what they make or where it is. Maybe that's not universal. I am not trying to tell you what should be your third rail. I am merely asking you to have one. And then if all of us have a certain third rail and we communicate it, then maybe we will all adjust to each other's third rail and therefore be tolerant of what we believe to be our third rails and not touch it. Because wouldn't that be the definition of empathy or sympathy or community when we have the opportunity to actually coexist in a place where people can feel safe about what they believe, about who they are? And that goes for every part of who someone is. I respect the Yankees for one thing, that they did not run from this issue. They were ready for it, and it's only coming out now. Were they ready on draft day? I assume they were. Apparently, Core Jackson was approved by Randy Levine all the way up to the top, and I promise you, as president of a team, we don't approve a fifth-round pick. We've got our draft people, our GM, first-round pick, you bet your bippy. A later round pick who wants to get millions of dollars over slot, that comes to the president. But a slotted, run-of-the-mill fifth-round pick, don't know, can't take credit for it. But when you got this situation, you got to get buy-in all the way top to bottom, from Hal Steinbrenner on down. And they got it, so I'm going to respect it. For me, I would not have drafted Core Jackson. Do I hope that he has a good career and that he learned his lesson? Of course. I'm not wishing him ill. I'm wishing him rehabilitation and increased intelligence to understand that actions have consequences. When actions have consequences, I think, and Coca, maybe this is where I may differ from some people, but if actions have consequences, don't we all agree that all of our actions are going to be better thought out, better planned? When you are saying something or doing something, I think the difference in intelligence is not whether you've read War and Peace. To me, and this is me, my definition of intelligence is that you're able to better figure out the ripple impact of your action. Oh, if I do this, then that, and this are going to happen. To me, that is a true sign of intelligence when you can properly predict what the ripple impact of one of your actions will be. You're never going to be perfect. There's no such thing as a genius, no matter what your IQ is. I'm not buying it. I love actions that have consequences. However, it opens up what happened with the Arizona Diamondbacks yesterday that gets me thinking that I may need to adjust my point of view. The Diamondbacks have removed their third base coach from the third base box because he got one too many runners thrown out at home. There's about 5 weeks left in the season. The Diamondbacks were playing the Guardians. A runner was waved home, and it was a perfect relay. Side note, a perfect relay is hard to come by. But a perfect relay happened. An amazing pick by Bo Naylor, the catcher of the Guardians. Just a short hop from the shortstop. Just fabulous. Runner out. The next thing I hear is that Torey Luvollo, the manager, had decided that he was going to make this change. A couple things about that. Torey Luvollo is not in charge of whether his third base coach is going to keep being his third base coach. At the end of the season, if Torey Luvollo is kept as Diamondbacks manager, you have a meeting with your manager where you go over the coaching staff. We like to do those meetings actually before the end of the season, because what we like to do is the last weekend of the season, whether we were home or away, it didn't matter. Those were the days when ideally we would be meeting with all of our coaching staff. and going through, you're coming back, you're not coming back. And the reason why we would do that is it would give our coaching staff the maximum amount of time to latch on to another organization if we were going to let them go. If we were going to reassign a big league coach, it would give the coach time to either agree to the reassignment or to not, and therefore become a free agent and go try to coach somewhere else and get a job. The only instances where we didn't meet with the coaches the last weekend of the season, Coca, was when the owner had not told us whether the manager was coming back. Because if we had to fire our manager, we weren't going to say to the coaches, here's who's back, who's not, because we knew that a new manager would come with demands for other coaches. But you try to meet the coaches. I have fired a lot of coaches during the season, pitching coaches, hitting coaches, for sure. But with 5 weeks left, even I didn't do it at this point. As frustrated as I may have been when a player gets thrown out at third, it's as frustrated as I am when a guy doesn't get a bunt down to get a runner over. We don't fire the hitting coach that particular moment in August. When a bullpen arm that we acquire stinks, we don't fire the scout. We don't fire the player personnel or the manager now during August. We wait. We like doing our firings in May and June. I think if you go back over my career, the number of changes we made in August and September, if I had to guess, would be very few, if not zero, Coca. I don't think that we can necessarily do that at this moment because we're live on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel, and I expect you to hit subscribe. Thank you. But making a change now, I didn't think made sense. And here's what Luvollo said. He understood. He knew that it was creating a lot of noise for this organization, a lot of noise for me, and he was embarrassed by that, and he takes full responsibility for that. I was really happy with how he took accountability and said, sorry, I didn't do my job, and this is what happens when you don't do your job. Well, that's pretty nice of the third base coach. Larkin is his name. That's pretty nice. Am I buying it? No, not even close. So here's how the meeting goes. You think that Torey Luvollo calls in Larkin into his office and says, listen, we got a small problem here. What do you think? How you feeling? Well, Torey, I got to tell you, I'm not doing my job. I feel like I don't deserve to be here any longer. I feel like you should let me go. Nope. That's not how it's happening. Torey Luvollo called him into his office and said, listen, I'm sorry, man. It's coming from above. There's nothing I can do. We got to make a change, and we're going to make it right now. Managers don't like firing their coaches. The only time I've ever had a manager agree to fire a coach, wait a minute, that would be the first time. Managers are super loyal to their coaches. We'd have to go down to the manager and tell the manager that we were making a change, period. And the manager would then fight for the coaches and say, we're crazy. And we'd say the decision has been made. And the manager, we'd say, you have to live with it. This comes from above in Arizona. Now, is Torey Luvollo playing the company man? And is he saying that it was his decision? This is what he wanted? Great. Is he saying that he had him as the third base coach when in fact he had no experience being the third base coach? I don't care what excuses you make. I don't care what you try to spin to the media. The manager of the Diamondbacks did not wake up yesterday morning and say, we're firing our third base coach because we keep getting runners thrown out. The GM, president, owner, the owner very easily could have called and said, I want him out of the box, and I mean now. Faster than you can spin a jack-in-the-box and have the clown come up and say, hey. And then you try to convince your owner you don't want to do it. The owner says, listen, I've made my decision. Go do it. Do it. At some point, you have to give in to your owner. You have to give in to your president if you're the GM. There is no GM on this planet who would be firing a third base coach of a crappy team on August 20th. Doesn't exist. It has too many ramifications throughout the organization, too many problems that get created by this. Now, they've done a good job of trying to talk through and say he wanted to be fired. He knew he was bad. He wanted to be accountable. They're trying, But we're not fooled here at Nothing Personal. Will this make a difference? No. We're teaming up with Jackpocket, America's #1 lottery app. You can order Powerball, Mega Millions, and scratch-off tickets in just a couple taps. And new customers, listen up. They're giving you $5 in lottery credits. Just download the app, opt in, and don't forget to use code SUPERFAN when signing up. So go grab the Jackpocket app. Use that code. This is it. Coca, let's review a movie, please. It's time for the review, and today's Thursday. I've given you my ranking of my days, I believe. You know that Friday's my favorite day. Saturday's my second favorite day. Thursday is my third favorite day. Then Wednesday, then Tuesday, then Monday, then Sunday. Sometimes I interchange Sunday and Monday. But Thursday, I mean, we're on the tip of the weekend. We can see it from here. But the other thing, the reason why we put this review on Thursday, where we get to review one of our top 100 movies for 100 straight Thursdays that we do a show, I have no idea how many weeks we've been doing this because we just know that there's more movies left of the top 100. I've given you my excuse that I'm going to redo my top 100 once we're done reviewing everything in the top 100. That's convenient because I was supposed to do it in January. Now it's August. Time flies when you're doing 10 hours. I get to rewatch a movie that you can see at davidsamsonpodcast.com. Don't worry, movie studio executives who are listening. I hear you, Marty. Don't worry. I don't have the actual movies on my website. Just davidsamsonpodcast.com. You can get great merch. Great merch. Go check it out. We have new designs, new logos. You want a coaster? Boom, we got a coaster with the great MPDS logo. You want great quarter zips, sweatshirts? We got stuff. Pint glasses. But also, we have a list of everything we do on this show. Because what you have told us you love, and actually you told us after we told you we love it, is total and complete accountability. Every word of the day, every movie reviewed, every pick of the day, every wait to see, we have it all. So we also have our top 100 movies. And this week, we're talking about The Usual Suspects. The Usual Suspects is a movie that stars Gabriel Byrne, Kevin Spacey, Benicio del Toro, Kevin Pollak, Stephen Baldwin, back when he was a partier. Boy, oh boy, did I have fun talking to Steve. I'm going to do one quick look at me, Louie here, Coca. You have not partied unless you've partied with Stephen Baldwin, who now, of course, doesn't party at all. He found God, but he used to. That's Justin Bieber's father-in-law. When I was partying with him, he was not Justin Bieber's father-in-law. Believe me. And we talked about The Usual Suspects. We talked about the lineup scene. We talked about making the movie. We talked about Kaiser Soze. Kaiser Soze. Kaiser Soze. If that doesn't mean anything to you, then you're about 3% of our audience. Because 97% of you have seen Usual Suspects. And if you don't have it at the top of your list, now, why is it only number 36? I've seen a lot of great movies. The reason I loved watching it again and why I love reviewing movies on a Thursday is that I got to watch it, and I've watched it many times, knowing what happens, but I notice different things each time to this day. And it's been years, decades watching the movie, and I notice little brilliant things from Bryan Singer. Brilliant Easter eggs that you look at and you say, oh my God, where was I the first time I watched it? That's the kind of movie I love. The Usual Suspects ages like the most perfect Camus. Go ahead and watch it. Enjoy. All right, Coca. Random number generator. Next Thursday, what do we got? I'm going to watch it today, Coca. Moulin Rouge. Nicole Kidman, Ewan McGregor, it's my number 4 ranked movie. It is always, always possible to be number 2. It can never be number 1 because that's Fearless. But Moulin Rouge, come what may. I always thought the courtesans loved me my whole life. Nothing personal pick of the day. Personal pick of the day is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. We got a big series starting today between the Red Sox and the Yankees. The Yankees, who are doing nothing but hitting and mashing home run after home run, have now taken a lead over the Red Sox, putting the Guardians in the rearview mirror. But the Red Sox have Lucas Giolito going, who is their number 2 starter behind Garrett Crochet, going against Luis Gil. That's right, the guy who's back from arm surgery, who made his first start of the season against the Marlins back in my first game back at Marlins Park since 2017. Well, they're facing each other, and the Red Sox are plus 122, according to our friends at DraftKings. Boom, pounce on that. Giolito, are you sleeping? He's been horrid, but not this year. He's actually turned it around and pitched like the guy who we all sort of thought he could be consistently, but hasn't, between injuries and lack of performance. But he's got it dialed in. And game 1 of a series, Red Sox-Yankees, the chaser has got to win game 1. Now, the chaser of the Cubs didn't win game 1 against the Brewers, and they've come back and won a bunch in a row. So it's not a, non-negotiable Jeremy Allen White, but it is still important for the Red Sox to get off the schneid here in game 1 against the Yankees. So the nothing personal pick of the day is the Red Sox plus 122, odds subject to change, versus the New York Yankees. How did we do last night? What's with the Brew Crew? Mizorowski walks 3 guys and gives up bases loaded double. Here's an idea, just between us, just because we're friends. Stop walking people. I don't know, 500. No, way more. What am I talking about? Per year, 18 years, 18 seasons, 162 games, 100 times? For sure. 100 times a year? Easy. 18 times 100 is 1,800. I would say that 1,800 times I was in a clubhouse asking a player or a pitching coach, do I have this wrong? Would we not rather give up a solo home run than a walk? I'm just throwing it out there. And I stick to that. Walking players stinks. It'll cost you desperately. It's why command is something that matters so much when you're evaluating pitchers. Throw strikes. Hey, what's the best pitch in an at-bat? Strike 1. Well, he's got an amazing four-seamer, and by the way, his breaking stuff is an 80. It's so above average. That's the best pitch. No, it's not. Strike 1. Thumb it in there. The Brewers lost. They weren't even big favorites over Colin Rea, he of the 2 medical record San Diego Padres, now on the Cubs. What's at stake? What do we got? How are the Cubs doing this without Justin Tucker? It is beyond comprehension to me. Remember, he's the one. It's Kyle Tucker. Thank you. All right, we'll do that again. 4-8-6-9. The Cubs, as you may recall, are sitting Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker, outfielder, Astros, trade, free agent, $500 million. I love the Cubs. They love me. We're in first place. Now the Brewers are hot. Now I'm cold, but I fractured my finger. Therefore, I can't grip the bat. Now I'm going to get rest because I need a breather. And Samson said I was going to play Wednesday, but I didn't. So I missed an entire wait to see from August 19th, 2025. Missed it. That's 2 days ago. When I said Tucker would be in the lineup yesterday, he wasn't. And yet, the Cubs won again. They beat the Brew Crew. Does that mean just keep them out of the lineup? Screw it. We're winning. We're beating them. Well, I'll tell you right now, the Cubs have had a great series against the Brewers. They are winning the season series right now 7-5 with 1 game to play. Do you know what that means? The Cubs have won the season series. So I made a mistake when I gave you information about what would happen if the Cubs win 4 out of 5. Because by winning right now 3 out of 5, which is what they've done with 1 to play, they've won sort of 3 out of 4 with 1 to play. The Brewers currently only have a 6-game lead over the Cubs. If the Cubs win again today and win 4 out of 5, then they will have a 5-game lead over the Brewers. But they can finish in a tie. It's a real 5 games. It's not like the Yankees who have to pass the Blue Jays. It's not like the Padres who have to pass the Dodgers. The Cubs don't have to pass the Brewers. They only have to catch the Brewers. This is a huge, monstrous game. If the Cubs win today against the Cubs, they win this series 4-5, and they've cut it to 5 games. If the Brewers win this game, they're back to 7 games. It's a big difference as we head into the end of August with no more head-to-head. It's impressive what the Cubs have done without Tucker. Is Tucker going to be in the lineup today, Coca? Are they just going to sit him the entire rest of the series? You got to get him back in there, period. But we lost our pick of the day, so we're down. We're now 110 and 107. Oi, big game today for us. We drafted a player. We talked about the draft today, didn't we? On a recent show, we talked about the draft. That was today. We talked about Core Jackson, the Yankees. Wow. Hi, my name's David Samson. All right, I'm clear. We're good. Draft is a crapshoot. You do your best. You hope for the best. How great is it when you draft some guy in the 3rd round and becomes the top pitching prospect in baseball? That's just heaven on earth. That's when you get to go to your GM and ask for a raise. That's when you just feel so good about yourself and you feel invincible. The Pirates, for all the talk, you remember a guy named Paul Skeens? He's a good pitcher. Are you despondent that Jared Jones got hurt? He's a good pitcher. He may come back. Well, they got another one, Bubba Chandler. Have you heard of him? Bubba Chandler is the 7th overall prospect in baseball, but he's the number 1 pitching prospect. He has never been in the big leagues before, and the Pittsburgh Pirates have decided now is the time to call him up. There's no issue with service time. There's no issue with not keeping control for the extra year. There's no issue with him being a Super 2. This is the perfect time to have manipulated his service to bring him to the big leagues. Couple of problems. One, the Pirates are not playing for anything but pride. They're playing for next year. It's what you do when you're not going to make the playoffs, and you know that during the dog days of August. You start focusing on next year. No matter what the GM say publicly or the president say publicly, what the baseball organization is doing right now, it is August, and they are focused on February, period. Because February, as you may know, is 6 short months away. 6 months from today. As a matter of fact, Coca, it's fewer than 6 months from today because next spring is the World Baseball Classic, so there's going to be camps that start earlier. But certainly 6 months from today, every team will be at spring training. You start planning for it. What would be the purpose of bringing Bubba Chandler to the big leagues right now? If you were to make an educated guess, what would you say? You would say that after 83 minor league starts, he's earned the right, and they want to see what they'd have with Bubba Chandler because while he's the number 1 pitching prospect, they want to get his feet wet, give him some action, and then have him go into the offseason with the confidence that he can get people out at the big league level, have a normal offseason, and come back to camp with what will be described next spring training as the best 1, 2, 3 rotation in all of baseball. We had a couple hitters, and all of a sudden, instead of hating me, they love me because we are projected to win 88 games and have the biggest turnaround of anybody. That's what's in your mind if you're the Pittsburgh Pirates. That's what you want to do to your fans. I'm good. It's all very normal. Except Don Kelly, my guy, played for me. Don Kelly, interim manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates. When we go to the manager and tell him, hey, we're bringing up this prospect, do you know what else we tell the manager? We tell the manager exactly what to do with this player. We are bringing up this center field prospect. He will be playing center field every day. We are bringing up this reliever. He is going into high leverage situations. Right now, he's your eighth inning guy. We're bringing up a starter. He will be starting. Here's the days he's starting: August 24th, August 30th, September 8th, September 16th. We've got it mapped out. What Don Kelly said is he's going to have an opportunity to earn starts like all of our guys. We're just excited to add him and his stuff. He's going to add a lot to the ball club. What is he talking about? You can't tell me that the Pittsburgh Pirates called up Bubba Chandler to put him in the bullpen. That is asinine. It literally makes no sense. It doesn't even make dollars. Bubba Chandler is a starting pitcher. You want him starting in the big leagues. Are you worried about innings? You got to calculate that before you call him up. He pitched 111 innings in 2023, 119 innings in 2024. It would make sense with innings progression, which is what we do with pitchers. For better or for worse, Jack McKeon be damned because he can't stand it. Pitch them all, Sparky. My guess is that Bubba Chandler has an innings limit this year. Call it 125 if you want to be conservative. He's pitched 100 innings. That gives him 25 innings. You assume 5 innings per start. Give the guy 5 starts. 5 starts, 5 innings, ends at 125. See you during spring. Get ready. You're going to be in the rotation. You're going to have him go out there and get a whole new routine trying to figure out how to get warmed up quickly when you're a starter and you're young and you're the top pitching prospect. How in the world does that make sense? You're going to pitch him out of the bullpen when the opportunity presents itself? What does that mean? With a 10-run lead, a 10-run deficit? Or are you all of a sudden going to have him be the closer? Why? You're not in a playoff race. You want to play spoiler? Forget it. Our interest, other than making sure the Mets didn't make the playoffs, our interest was in getting ready for next year. This can't be right, Coca. As a matter of fact, I want to do a wait to see here. I'm going to do an official wait to see. Bubba Chandler, wait to see is when we tell you something's going to happen. If it does, fine. If it doesn't, fine. We will revisit it like we did with the Kyle Tucker wait to see that we totally botched. Wait to see. Bubba Chandler will start a game before the season ends. I mean, that's funny, isn't it? Making that an official wait to see. Let me say it another way. Well, no, that's the official wait to see. That'll go in the document. Bubba Chandler will start a game before the end of the 2025 season for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Because if he doesn't, that is a breach of your fiduciary duty, for crying out loud. It is a breach of your job on how to run a team. It can't be. Bubba Chandler has to be part of your rotation. I don't know, Coca. What is it? Is it that the game, do you think, has passed us by because I've been out of it for 7 or 8 years? I don't think so. There's a lot of stuff that's happening. I think it's great. You've got a bunch of machines that pretend they're throwing the ball 92 miles an hour with sink and spin. I love those pitching machines. I love it. I love the fact that we have better training, that you put a ring or a bracelet, and all of a sudden that shows, hey, this guy's not sleeping. This guy is sleeping. This guy's having pizza at 3 a.m. This guy just lit a big fat one at 2:30 a.m., and he's starting the next day. Fine. I'm in with those advances. I'm good. But pitchers progressing with their innings and being starters, that hasn't changed. I believe that I will be proven 100% right and that Don Kelly just got the message wrong and that Bubba Chandler will absolutely be a starting pitcher for the Pirates, and he's going to be a good one. All right, Coca, it's time for the break. And after the break, you never know, we may have a guest. We'll be right back. Welcome back to hour 2 of Nothing Personal on this Thursday, August 21st. And you know what Thursday means? It means we have a guest. And today is not just any ordinary Thursday. Twice a week, I know you're listening to the Mina Kimes show. And if you're not, you ought to be. We're talking about also ESPN's NFL analyst extraordinaire. And she's ours for a couple minutes. Mina Kimes, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I do wonder how many listeners you have that listen to my show, how much crossover there is. I'm not sure. Perhaps football fans?
Well, the hope is that there's very little crossover until right now, and all of a sudden there will be great amounts of crossover, thereby making this mutually beneficial.
Let's go. I hope so. That's why I'm here.
We have to talk football. Football season starting. I do want to talk baseball because I have a secret thought about you that baseball is a true love of yours.
It's not, I don't feel like it doesn't need to be secret. It's kind of my most uncomplicated fandom at this point, and it's my oldest fandom. I think that's pretty common with kids, that baseball is their first love. It's kind of easier for kids to understand, but I grew up a Mariners fan from a really, really young age. First sports events I ever went to were Mariners games at the Kingdom. And to this day, at times, unfortunately, sometimes fortunately, I remain a Mariners fan.
Well, what's been unfortunate? I mean, they haven't won a World Series.
This latest East Coast stand, they've been losing like crazy. They just got killed by the Phillies. That's what's unfortunate. And also, by the way, 20 years of just devastation.
Well, you had the best record in the history of baseball. It's a Mariners record. It had some playoff issues with the Yankees, but you've had such stars come through there that are such a part of the lore of the Mariners that I don't think you've gotten cheated. I mean, being a Marlins fan would be better because you'd have 2 rings, but it's not too shabby to love the Mariners.
I do agree. And I would say also those stars are like truly lovable players that the Mariners have had. Some of the really like good guys you're excited to root for. Obviously, Ken Griffey Jr., but Edgar Martinez, who's my personal favorite of all time, Felix Hernandez during some of those feudal years, and now you have Cal Raleigh and Julio Rodriguez. They're very likable stars in Seattle.
Are you? I assume you don't have an MVP vote in the American League.
I do not have an MVP vote in baseball.
If you were to have it, are you going? I mean, can you try to separate business from personal? Does Cal Raleigh have the advantage over Aaron Judge in your mind?
Last time I looked at it, I thought he had a pretty strong case over Judge, but that was a few weeks ago. So I will be totally upfront. I have not looked at the numbers lately to really break it, but it was obviously very tight then, and I suspect it's very tight now.
My point always was that being a catcher is way harder than being a designated hitter or even a right fielder because you're the only player who's facing the field. You're involved in every single play, no matter what. I mean, a pickoff play to first, you're still involved because you're giving the sign. So what he's doing, both catching and also just hitting home runs in a way that he hasn't hit before, it's been an impressive season for them.
And he's a good catcher. He's not just a catcher, right? Like he's good at it. So yeah, that's obviously reflected in some of the advanced stats, the defensive contributions, but I do think you have to consider that for sure.
So we do the stats here with our audience because people get all crazy when teams lose a couple in a row, their baseball teams, like when the Mariners lost a couple to the Phillies. And I try to always put it in perspective with the NFL. So if you lose one NFL game, just one, because of the way the schedule is, I try to explain that's like a 10-game losing streak in Major League Baseball, which is why it becomes such a serious thing. However, when we talk about the NFL season starting and we're looking at preseason, I'm just amazed at the coverage for these meaningless preseason games. I get it. Everyone wants content. But as we're heading toward the start of the regular season, what are you noticing about preseason? Has anything come across where your analysis of a team has changed because of a preseason game?
Yeah, I mean, there's legitimate quarterback competitions that are decided in the preseason. Yesterday, Indianapolis going with Daniel Jones over Anthony Richardson. We're waiting to hear what the Saints do. The Browns, really that's more QB2, but that's going to be decided with Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. I think for a lot of fan bases, a lot of the excitement stems from the fact that it's like their first chance to see young quarterbacks, rookies in particular, Jackson Dart, Cam Ward, all very exciting for those fan bases because even though Dart is not going to start week one. He's first round draft pick. If you're a Giants fan, like it's inevitably like it's exciting. You tend to not want to read too much into it because there's a lot of good examples throughout history of guys who have lit it up in preseason and then not gone on to do much. But I don't think fans are crazy. I think maybe you have to kind of parse it. Fans who are still like dialed in the fourth quarter when you're literally watching guys compete for special teams, that's a little bit, sicko behavior. But we see a lot of starters in the preseason. I mean, I was on a Sports Center on Monday with Rich Eisen after the Monday night game, and Joe Burrow played the entire first quarter. It was kind of shocking, but it's not all meaningless, is what I'm saying.
When I was thinking about what the Colts did a couple days ago, and as someone in New York, where I see the way Daniel Jones from day one, I'll never forget this. I mean, I finished the Montreal Marathon, and it was the day that he debuted. And as a Giants fan, everything felt good that day.
Yeah.
And then it went downhill like you're, a double X diamond in Colorado. And now all of a sudden he's starting. Well, is that more of an indictment on Richardson? Or is it more of a, wow, Daniel Jones may have finally figured this out?
It's definitely more about Richardson in my mind. It was a quarterback competition. I think Richardson did have the opportunity to run away with it. And he didn't, right? I don't think Daniel Jones like dramatically outplayed him in the preseason. They both played a decent amount in week 2, but Richardson not seeing, he failed to identify pressure week 1. He got hurt, just kind of added to the sense with him that there hasn't been the development on the mental side of playing the position. Also, in addition to kind of accuracy underneath that they would have hoped for with the, him being a first round pick. And, it's just he never got, there's kind of two ways to look at it. He never developed, but you could also say he didn't get the necessary reps, some of that because of injuries. Year 1, getting hurt. He's, again, in this preseason game, getting hurt. I think for Colts fans, though, it's not a decision you feel good about because you wanted Richardson to win the job. And I'm not saying they should have given them the job, but with Daniel Jones, I think there's like a pretty clear ceiling on this offense. And, watching him in the preseason, he just looks the same to me. He's not going to push the ball downfield as much. He's athletic, but his accuracy isn't amazing, and he's going to take a lot of sacks. So, it's kind of like a lose-lose situation, I think, for the Colts franchise. I think what you might find interesting about this is, like, to me, I felt like the Colts front office and their head coach are, I think, correctly perceived as being on the hot seat. They went with the safer choice. And I think it's a good case study in like what can happen when the incentives of the decision makers maybe aren't aligned with what's best for the team. I'm not saying it was best for the team to start with Richardson, but they're not going to win a Super Bowl with Daniel Jones, right? So it felt like the safer option for the staff, but I don't know if it was the right choice for the franchise long term.
I actually thought it was strange when the coach not just doubled down, but to me, quadrupled down with the announcement by saying, this is not a temporary naming of a quarterback. I expect him to be our quarterback all season long, as though trying to eliminate anybody chirping when he goes 3 and out and then they score 4 points, 3 points, 4 points. That'd be funny. 2 safeties, the first game of the season. So that I don't see that often. What would explain? It's not their size of the contract, or their length that they have left. I think it's really them trying to, does it take pressure off Richardson, or do you think it adds pressure to Jones?
It takes pressure off Richardson insofar as, like, if he does come in at some point, and honestly, if I had to bet, I think we'll see him at some point this season. He's not going to have to be the savior. It will be at a point which the offense would have already been struggling and whatnot. But I don't think it's good for it. I've seen some people say it's good for Anthony Richardson. It's not good for Anthony. He needs to play football. I mean, the dude had barely played. He barely played as a prospect. It's a big part of the reason why he was like kind of overvalued. And he's barely played in the NFL. He spent an entire year sitting on the bench. He's not going to learn from sitting on the bench behind Daniel Jones. As far as like how definitive the staff was, I really think this was just them kind of protecting themselves and going with what they felt like, okay, we have a guy who can run our offense. Maybe it's not going to look pretty. Maybe we're not going to be, certainly not a top 10 unit, but at least it'll look functional. They had that drama last year where they benched Richardson. for Joe Flacco, who then he came in and he was bad, and they went out back to Richardson. I think they just want to avoid the yo-yoing, even though if Daniel Jones struggles, and he will at some point, fans are going to be calling for it.
Chris Ballard, their GM, I recall him saying, I love when GMs do this. I've got to be better at my job. That's what every GM and every coach and every team president says when your team's losing right before you get rid of all the players. But he's been saying this for 2 years. He's got to be better at his job. But this is an interesting year for the Colts. Jim Irsay passed away. You've got his 3 children running it, but different departments. There's one of the 3 is in charge. One, I think, is in PR. One's running the foundation. And Jim Irsay was definitely involved, as my view is all team owners in every sport are hugely involved. But I wonder if Chris Ballard said to himself this year, wow, it's more on me now because I have a really inexperienced owner.
I think he knows that regardless of ownership, his job is on the line just because of some of the mistakes that they've made in drafting and just the fact that they haven't solved the quarterback problem since Andrew Luck retired. If you look at the list of quarterback, and they've been also kind of like sort of too good or too mediocre rather. And then they had the chance to go after one, and they took the shot on Richardson, and that was Chris Ballard's choice, and obviously it didn't work out. So, yeah, he's going to be accountable for what happens this season. I think for the Colts, what is going to be interesting is if Daniel Jones drags them along to, say, 9-8, knocking on the door of the playoffs, maybe if it's 10-7, is that enough, right, for both the head coach and the GM to save their jobs? I think fans will probably be saying no, but that's going to be the difficult decision for the ownership.
Mina, you said something that I can't let go. You said that it's too late. The Richardson draft did not work out. Is that a fait accompli now because Jones got the job or Richardson's been hurt so much? Is that it for him?
I think it's it for him in Indianapolis. I don't think he's necessarily on track for like a Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold type revival. But there's a reason why those revivals happen, not just like on different teams, but on several teams removed, right? Trey Lance, I think, is probably the closest corollary because he was a draft pick of the Niners, gave up the world to go get, and then he struggled and he got beat out and he didn't play because he was injured. He was also incredibly inexperienced and he just needed to play. And he got some preseason reps in Dallas, didn't look good, played a little bit. This preseason in LA, he looks pretty solid at the Chargers. He's the backup there. I think he's going to win the QB2 job. So I think Anthony Richardson could have that kind of trajectory where he ends up being a backup and then he gets a chance later on down the road to actually improve his accuracy and decision-making and whatnot. But I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
Does this feel like a different year? This could be total recency bias for me, but does this feel like a different year in terms of all of the quarterbacks and how unsettled all these teams are with their quarterbacks? You mentioned the Giants. They have Russell Wilson. It's like everyone played musical quarterback chairs. And to keep track, you've got Aaron Rodgers, who's with the Steelers, obviously. So Russ Wilson said, all right, Steelers, Giants. And then Justin Fields said, all right, I can get a job. I'll go to the Jets. Is this, do I have it wrong, Mina? Is this every year or is this year a little different?
I think every year there's like a decent amount of quarterback movement, probably like a quarter of the league or so. This year, you have a couple of rookies, a couple of vets in new places. I think Geno switching teams was unexpected, and that sort of maybe added a little bit to the sense of momentum, but it's pretty normal, I would say, for this percentage of quarterbacks to be new around the league.
So let's try to narrow it down. If we're looking at Tua on the Dolphins, and we're looking at Trevor Lawrence on the Jaguars. And I give those examples because I saw recently a tier ranking of quarterbacks. And Tua and Trevor were like on the bottom, like top of tier 3 or middle of tier 3. And I was thinking about the contracts they have and the money that's being paid to them. So when you're looking at those two, let's start with those two. We'll go down to Florida. Who do you think has the best chance of leading their team to any sort of success this season?
Ooh. Those two are really good to comp because I think they're both two of the more difficult teams to like get your arms around in the NFL. I would say I slightly lean Miami because the Jags defense, I think they were the worst pass defense in football last year. And I just did an AFC South preview and there's just some really big holes on that defense. I mean, the Dolphins secondary has some issues as well, but the pass rush should be good. I'll
Isn't
go
every
Miami.
cornerback isn't every cornerback for the Dolphins out? Like, aren't you and I the starting
Yeah,
cornerbacks?
I know it's really bad. I don't know. Maybe Jacksonville. Jacksonville also gets to play in the AFC South, you know. I think though, if I right now, I would say I'd probably Miami, but I wouldn't be surprised if both teams miss the playoffs.
So is this the final year for them?
Oh
If they
no,
don't make the playoffs, if Tua and Trevor,
no,
is this just another year?
nope.
They'll come back next year,
They'll
and
come back.
that's it. The
I
Dolphins
could
and
pull
Jaguars have
uh,
made their bed.
certainly not Trevor. I haven't looked at Tua's contract in a while, but I suspect it is not easy to get out of this year. Last time I looked, it was a little bit. It wasn't like super team friendly, but it wasn't like a devastating. All right, Tua. Let's see. 2027, they can get out with a $35 million cap hit. So it wouldn't be this year, it would be next year.
That's
This
so
year,
far from now.
this year's a $60 million cap hit if they were to call
I'm
it.
just wondering, the
Oh
way
no, more
teams
than that. Sorry, 99 million.
90, so he's there. I mean, it is what it is. If
Yeah.
he's hurt, he's hurt. If he's not good, he's not good.
There's a big drop off the next year though, yeah.
It seems to me like in baseball, what you try to do is have as many overperforming players as possible, which means as many young pitchers who are not yet arbitration eligible, who can start every 5 days
Yeah.
and give your team a chance to win. You sprinkle in a few veterans at the back of the rotation, maybe get someone at the back end of the bullpen. But in football, it seems to me that if you are giving all of your money, like 20% plus of your cap to a quarterback, and you can't surround him with enough that they win, you have basically crushed yourself for a period of years. And it's hard not to think that the Dolphins and Jaguars have done that.
I don't think the Dolphins' biggest issue is merely Tua. I mean, they kind of went all in a couple of years ago on a few players, and I think they're paying the price for that now as those players age, your Tyreek Hills and whatnot. Um, I generally object to the notion for a while, people were pushing the idea that you can't pay a quarterback and have success in the NFL, and it was skewed because Brady took like a little bit less. Patrick Mahomes was on his rookie contract at first, and they just consumed a large portion of. I mean, they just won so many Super Bowls, right, between them and appeared in so many. But I do think it's entirely possible you can pay a quarterback. You just can't make. I would say like three or four, maybe three big mistakes. Like if you're going to pay three giant contracts, two of the three have to be good players. And then, yeah, depending on how your team is built, you have to draft reasonably well around them. The Chiefs are a good example. I think the Chiefs have stayed competitive. They have the best quarterback in football. They have brilliant coaches. And while they have not drafted really well on offense, defensively, they've been able to find a lot of contributors later in the rounds too. So it's just, you stay competitive, but you have to hit on a few draft picks and you can't waste too much of your money.
Where do you stand on players who are under contract choosing to hold out and not play or demand a trade? And I'm thinking of Hendrickson, but we
Yeah.
can go down to Parsons. We can go anywhere we want with that. I was brought up in baseball where you sign a contract, that's your contract. Like, just sometimes we're going to win, sometimes you're going to win. But if every time the player feels like we win, all of a sudden the player doesn't show up and play, I mean, I think our sport would implode. But in football, it seems to be happening a lot. Why is that?
Well, you know this. The difference is football player who's not making what he deserves could go out one day, break his leg, and never get what he deserves. It's very different from baseball, right? The personal risk that players assume on a week to be forget even not even I'm not even talking about games, David, like practice. They go to camp, a non-contact injury, it's over. You're never going to get paid. So I would say that's the single biggest there are, differentiation. I mean, a lot of these players also like were on cost control deals for the first 5 years, let's be honest, of their careers, sometimes more if you're a first round draft pick and you have the 5th year option and then there's the tag and all of that. So football players are like pretty routinely not paid what they're worth if they're stars, almost always. As my issue with it is just the efficacy. It's just it doesn't usually work out. And that there's a million reasons for that. CBA, fines, all of that. But it's very, very hard for players to actually exert the leverage of a holdout and get rewarded for it.
Yet they're still doing it.
You know, there's a litany of reasons for that. I would say there are examples of it. You'd have to really like break down with the fines whether or not it's worth it or not. But I think for players, it's just a decision. Like the risk of me going out there and getting hurt right now is not worth it mentally.
I've always had a thought on this, which is there's a CBA and there's opportunities, and I've had all the arguments with everybody that management has the advantage in every CBA negotiation, not just in sports, but across the world of unions. If you have a choice, be on the management side, you're going to have the inherent advantage. But in football, there's opportunities. Now, we can talk about Pablo Torre finds out in the collusion grievance and the fact that it smelled, felt, and touched and sounded like collusion, but there wasn't enough proof and all the stuff that goes on. But the players have an opportunity to choose what they want. And we know that what management wants is an 18th game. And so the opportunity with the trade that could happen in the CBA negotiation, which is what happens all the time, what is the number one thing that you think NFL players want? Is it as obvious as what everyone says? They just want the ability to have more guaranteed money?
Well, getting more guaranteed money isn't something you can negotiate for, right? Like that's a product of um
You can negotiate that certain players, rookie deals, second
oh,
deals.
sorry. Yeah. Well, rookie year deals, yeah, you could change the rookie contract scale and sure. But I'm just saying, like, when we talk about like these football players who sign these like mega contracts, quarterbacks are most notable ones. This always comes up. There's only been one fully guaranteed contract, truly, Deshaun Watson, right? Why don't other players do that? That's not a CBA issue. That's a personal risk issue. It's a CBA issue insofar as you get there because you've had your wages suppressed for, as I said, multiple years because of the rookie wage scale, the franchise tag, the fifth year option, all of that. So by the time you actually get a chance to get paid, are you really going to hold out? Also, the team has leverage over you because, again, you're going out there, you're risking your body every day. Do you want to wait to actually hit free agency, which is the other thing that it would probably take, correct, right? Like you want to get paid early. This is the good teams get extensions done early. They're taking advantage of the fact that if you're a player and you've only made X amount of money, you've been paid since you were, especially in the pre-NIL era, you've never been paid what you were worth. Why would you absorb the risk of playing another season for the possibility of more guarantees if an owner is telling you, I can give you $100 million now? But that's a personal issue. Like it would take a player who's willing to like push it to the limit. There's been some unusual examples of players who have come close to achieving free agency. Kirk Cousins is a good example and have gotten a lot more guaranteed money because of that. You asked me what players want. I mean, I think they just want more of the pie. A greater revenue share of the revenue is the most important thing.
Well, when you look at their CBA, though, that's the whole point of a salary cap is that there's pegged. And so as the revenue goes up, the players will continue, the salary cap will continue to go up. And God knows there's 20 people per team who are hired to get around the salary cap and figure out ways. It happens in the NBA, it happens in the NFL. So I think it's an interesting conversation because the revenue pie keeps growing. We know that the NFL will opt out of its current media deals. They're going to get a new set of media deals.
Yeah.
We just heard this week about the possibility of a Super Bowl in London, and people just poo-pooed it. And I am telling you, Mina, it's going to happen. I have no doubt in my mind there is way too much money at stake. Do you have any sort of thought? I know our time is short, but are you not happy with that possibility, or do you realize it's business?
Oh, I think that's way better proposition for everybody than regular season games overseas where the travel is just brutal because the Super Bowl, you have the time removed from season. Teams are spending extra time on location. So that to me makes more sense than, like we have the opener, there's a Brazil game week 1, that's much trickier from a logistics perspective and much harder on these players and their bodies than a Super Bowl. So I don't know.
Brazil's even harder, Mina, because you don't really switch time zones. It's not many time zones, and it's still 9 hours.
It's brutal. I think a Super Bowl overseas makes way more sense to go back to your proposition. Like just because logistics. I mean, I've always heard, not always heard, but like people have talked for a while about like, what if the NFL played a game in like Asia? And I just don't see how. It's just crazy. Like from a travel perspective, it's so hard on these guys. But Super Bowl, yeah, sure. You have time. You get to spend a week there. You get to get acclimated. et cetera, et cetera. That makes more sense to me.
So it's going to bust ESPN's travel budget when there's a Super Bowl
Hey,
in London.
I'm
'Cause
down.
you're
I'll go to
going.
London. Yeah, I'll go there for a week. Happy to.
Just remember when you're there, you have to look right. If you remember nothing else from our talk today, when you're in London, make sure you look right. Because if you look left, there's going to be a double-decker bus and it's going to hit you in the back.
Be a horrible way to go, David. Just a horrible
You
way
are
to go.
welcome. Mina, thank you. Host, we're done. We're out of time already. I told you 25. Host of Mina Kimes twice a week. Let's get the crossover. Let's do that connectivity, please. ESPN NFL analyst, the NFL season starting, and make sure you listen to Mina wherever she is because she's everywhere. Thank you, Mina.
Thanks for having me on.
One of my favorite things to do is to take advantage of opportunities that when the teacher's away, the mice may play. Oh, I wanted to do that so much better. Is it teachers and mice, Coca? When the cat's away, the mouse will play? What do you do in professional sports when all the coaches go away? You'd say that that's a players only meeting. Well, the Jets did something yesterday that I loved. They did a players only practice. Practice? Well, it turns out what the Jets decided to do is to keep Aaron Glenn as head coach, only Aaron Glenn, and every coordinator, every coach, every strength coach, anybody who had a clipboard, anybody with a headset, anybody who didn't have pads on, they disappeared, stage left, stage right. And they then proceeded to have the players decide. Well, we're going to practice red zone now. All right, defense. Here's the call. And you had a defender leading the defensive practice, the quarterback, Fields, leading the offense, calling the plays. The head coach was watching. Does it sound desperate to you this close to the season? Is it possible as an owner you'd say, well, wait a minute, why do I need 45 guys in quarter zips? Maybe they can just all run the asylum themselves. I wanted to really formulate my thought on whether a player-led practice makes sense. Players can do BP on their own if they can throw to each other. They can do infield practice on their own if one of them can hit a fungo, which, by the way, hitting a fungo is super hard. Throwing BP, super hard. Shout out, tip of the cap to Freddie Gonzalez, the #1 batting practice coach I'd ever seen. Him and Pierre Arsenault are two best batting practice pitchers. It's hard. You watch it during home run derbies. That's a different level of something. But every day, the grind of throwing BP. So you need someone to throw it, but you really need the third base coach, the infield coach, the outfield coach, the strength and conditioning coordinator. I don't know. I think we could get away without it. But in football, I think coaches are way more valuable than in any other sport. And I'm not poo-pooing baseball or basketball or all the guys with the clipboards. I'm saying that basketball and baseball, hockey probably is second. But #1 importance, you need people coaching you. You need plays called. You need formations. You need substitution patterns. It's not as though it just throw the ball out and then that's it. The manager will decide when the pitcher comes out, when the bullpen arm comes in. Frankly, well, most pitchers are delusional, but in theory, you could have a pitcher say, all right, I'm done, I'm gassed. But more likely than not, they're the major league guy who just says, oh, I got one more. I got one more for you, Skip. So I was thinking, am I good with this? And what's the purpose? I'm a purpose guy. I like when I do something that it's part of a plan. When I'm thinking about how to get to my goal, that every step I take is a step toward that goal. It may not be a direct path. I may have to go off the path, but I always find my way back toward the goal that I have. What's the Jets' goal? What do you think their goal would be to start a season? Super Bowl? Do you think that's their reasonable goal? Conference title game? I would think that the New York Jets are looking at their team and they're saying, if we can be playing in January, not regular season, I think that would be a successful season. When you're a middling team, I don't think you screw around with player-led practices. I love the idea of a veteran winning team coming off a conference championship. I would love it like the Ravens, who some would say it's been a bit disappointing. No Super Bowls for Lamar Jackson, best quarterback. The team is always supposed to be good. They always are good. Then they always have playoff disappointments. I would like the idea of players saying, you know what? Let's take this today. We've got this. The Buffalo Buffs do their own practice. This way, they don't have to get yelled at after a bad preseason outing. They can just go ahead and be responsible for their own. But when you're a team that stinks or a team that has really had, you've ravaged your fan base over the years by your lack of performance, I don't think it's time for this type of activity or this type of game. Now, the players loved it. Aaron Glenn loved it. It became this big thing. And for me, I thought it was the right message, wrong messenger. Right concept, wrong practice. Right theory, wrong moment. We'll see what happens with the Jets this season, but from my standpoint, I'm in, just not for the Jets. You know what else I'm in for? I love accountability. I just do. I like the idea, and we talked about it earlier in the first hour. We talked about it with the shortstop in the Yankees draft. He took accountability for his action. It's a great first step. Accountability can cover all sorts of ills. It's like the greatest Clearasil that you could ever have. It's not like the Band-Aid that the kids use to put on their zits that now it's like weird. Like you've got a lot of Band-Aids on your face. I wouldn't have noticed it, but for the Band-Aids. When you're meeting the media and you're Myles Garrett and you are the subject of way more off the field talk than what is ordinary, let's talk about Myles Garrett and off the field. You know what's happened to him. You know the holdout. You know the new contract. You know the demands he made. And you know the moving violations that he keeps getting. This guy drives 100 more than old people drive 20. That's just in his mind what the speed limit is. And he keeps getting violations. He keeps getting pulled over. So when you've got a player who is not a one-time offender, but is a multi-time offender, you know when the media comes for the first time after the latest, you're going to have to talk about it. There's no way around it. Well, Myles Garrett met the media for the first time since the latest violation, and he committed what I consider to be a cardinal sin from a public relations standpoint, violating page 1, paragraph 4 of the playbook of what to do after you've had violations of the law. You can't say, when asked, and you certainly can't be agitated and upset and angry, what is it that you think the media is going to ask? Tell me. How do you feel about the 4-3-4 motion? 4869. Tell me, how do you feel about the 4-3 formation that was used in the third play during that practice? Myles, how did you feel when there was the blocking scheme against you? Were you comfortable as you were approaching the quarterback? Come on. You know exactly what's going to be asked. So, what's the deal with the speeding tickets, dude? And you know what he said? I've answered it 2 different times. So I'm going to need you to ask a different question so I can focus on this team and not, this headline you're trying to get out of these questions you're asking. So here's the rule. If you don't want to answer a question that's asked of you during a scrum or when you're meeting the media, you don't have to answer it. But you don't say that you're not answering it. Let me explain to you very clearly, Myles, what I'm talking about. So, Myles, what happened here with this speeding violation? Have you learned your lesson? I got to tell you, I am so super excited about this team this year. We have had a phenomenal training camp. We are ready for week 1, and I feel like this is our moment where we've got the pieces in place. We are completely behind Joe Flacco. All of the noise around QB2 and QB3 and Shedeur Sanders, I got to tell you, it's so quiet around us that we are just ready to show everyone who has our over-under of 4.5 that they got it wrong, unless it was for the first half of the season. Well, Myles, what about the speeding ticket and the violation? Can you address sort of what was going on in your head as you were going 125 and a 65? I got to say that my head is so focused on what we're doing on the field this season. I am so excited to be a part of this Browns organization that I look back and think about the trade demand that I made, and I think about the new contract and the responsibility I have to be a leader, and I am embracing that role each and every day, each and every snap. Myles, thank you so much, but you're not answering my question. What was going on in your head during the speeding violation? My head is so clear right now as I focus on our week 1 opponent. Do you get what I did there, folks? Do you get the fact that I can take any question you ask and I can bridge it to any answer I have been told to give and that I think is the right answer? Don't you think that's better than instead telling someone you're going to have to ask a different question? I don't agree. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it. And this is what he said. I'm not going to talk about anything I'm doing off the field other than the back to school event that I did the other day. Oh, I'm sorry, Myles. Man of the year. Thank you so much for doing the back to school event that's contractually obligated as an appearance under the collective bargaining agreement. Thank you. I appreciate it. However, anything you want to say about the fact that you keep breaking the law and you're going to need Bitterman to drive you to practice every day? God, do I love when I can work at an Arthur reference. Coca's looking at me right now. I can see it. I can see his eyes piercing my corporate veil saying, Bitterman? Have you ever heard of Ted Ross, the great character actor who played Bitterman the driver in Arthur with Dudley Moore? Forget it. I guess my bottom line there is, Coca, and it is a bottom line. You got to be better if you're Myles Garrett. You're being looked at. Of course, the media's going to want to talk about it. Where are the PR people for the Browns? Are they asleep? That's funny. I'm asking where the PR people are for the Browns, and I forgot that they signed Deshaun Watson for $230 million. I forgot. So I'll say it a slightly different way, which you really don't do with many other teams, but I'll do it in this case with the Browns. Where were the Haslams? I guess they do all the preparation for all the things that people say and do before and after, and it's not the GM, it's not the coach, Stefanski. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you all don't care. I'd like you to care. What's your view of the Indiana Fever? Do you have a view? Are you aware that the Indiana Fever have a player named Caitlin Clark who plays for them? Are you aware that Caitlin Clark has played in only 13 games this season because of all her injuries? Did you know Caitlin Clark hasn't played? You wouldn't know this because all they do is announce new attendance records and new great things in the WNBA, new sales, new prices, new valuations, new ratings. Have you noticed that Caitlin Clark is not playing since July 15th? Well, she was rehabbing her groin, which was hurt while rehabbing her groin, and now she suffered an ankle injury while rehabbing the groin from the rehab of the groin. And the question is she ever going to come back? Indiana coach Stephanie White told reporters Sunday that she hopes Clark gets back before the end of the regular season. But the fact of the matter is, the coach is right. You can't practice, you can't play. Now, of course, there are examples where people don't have to in any way go to rehab starts and they can just get brought back to the big leagues. Yes, there's places when you miss, 2 weeks, you get back on the ice and you go for it. But you've been with the team or you've skated on your own. It's pretty rare, though, when you're in the NBA and you miss time, whether it's for your Achilles, your groin, your hammy, your ankle, your shoulder, whatever it is, a cuticle on your pointer, which you are trying not to pick so it doesn't look obvious. All of those things, generally, you have to get back to practice. You get back in the flow. It starts with the little 2-on-2. First, you're shooting. Then you do some 1-on-1, maybe a game of horse, a game of pickle, game of tag. Then you do full 5-on-5, full court practice. You always hear about this with players as they're coming back in basketball. Then they're deemed ready to roll. But then they've got a minutes restriction because they've got some cardio issues, even though depending on the injury, you can still be on the bike or be on the treadmill. But when it's your ankle and your groin, it's hard to keep up your cardio. So you got to get yourself back into game shape. Now, you can play yourself back into game shape, one of my favorite expressions that we use in sports. He's going to play himself into shape. Well, that works fine, except the first sort of 5 times that you're playing yourself into shape, you're out of shape, you're gasping for breath, you can't get any oxygen, you're huffing and puffing, you're getting beaten on defense, your shot keeps falling short because you're tired, and your legs are not underneath you. Hey, that's just another Wednesday for normal weekend athletes, but for professional athletes, you need your legs, you need your cardio. There has been a lot of talk about this Indiana fever. Now, keep in mind, they're trying to make the playoffs for the second year in a row, but they've got a ton of injuries. They are 6th in the WNBA. The Indiana Fever right now are ranked 6th, and that's without Caitlin Clark for the past over a month. That's with the fact that they've lost 4 guards, including Sophie Cunningham, who's out for the year. You may know that the top 8 will make it to the playoffs in the WNBA, and they've got a 2-game lead over the 9 seed. So they're up 2 with 9 to go without Caitlin Clark. Guess who's rooting so hard for the Indiana Fever not to lose 2 games in the standing in the last 9? Hi, my name is Adam Silver. You can make fun of my appearance all you want, but I'm here to tell you that we're trying to do business. And to do business, we need Caitlin Clark. And right now, she's missing time, and we need momentum in this year's playoffs. We need it badly. He is out there with the Indiana Fever training staff. He's working on the knee, working on the groin, working on the ankle, trying to figure out, come on, Caitlin, come on, you can do it. Come back. Toradol, anyone? Anything? Inflammatories? We got you. Shots? We're in. Future health? We're out. We'll see what happens. I suspect what you're going to see is that Caitlin Clark will return, and she'll return with about 2 games left to get her legs under her, and then she will be available for the playoffs, and the Fever will make the playoffs so we can keep telling good stories about the WNBA. Now, of course, we could tell good stories about the WNBA, and we could do it in terms of franchise valuation. There is an update of a story that we told, I don't know, Coca. I don't know, this week, last week. It's hard to remember here at episode 1341 of regular episodes when we did it. But do you remember when the Connecticut Sun, who were owned by the Mohegan tribe, do you remember when the announcement came that they were selling to a group that was moving the team to Boston for $325 million? And do you remember when the WNBA about 10 minutes later said, hold your horses? We did not approve this sale. We did not approve this relocation. Sorry. Do you remember how embarrassing that was, that they were so out of sync that there may have been a premature announcement and some premature speculation, which is never good? You also remember the fact that the WNBA is looking at expansion. And you also remember the fact that they've got a bunch of cities before Boston that are trying to get expansion teams, and you don't want to have a relocation when you've got expansion, which is why in baseball, they got to get Tampa set. They got to get Vegas set, because then you can do expansion for real when there's no one chirping about relocation. You can't use up an expansion city, especially one like Boston, for relocation. You simply can't, unless Bob Barker and the Skinny Mike. Drew, you're doing great, by the way. Unless the price is right. So what exactly is happening right now? The WNBA is out there messaging to you that not only is the sale not happening, but there is a scenario under which we would consider the possibility of maybe doing something to help the Mohegan tribe who wants to sell the team. So maybe we will go back to 2002. We will review that crazy franchise swap that guy David Samson did with one lawyer and one banker and one deputy commissioner. Put together a 3-way. Not the kind of 3-way that you look for in college. I'm talking about the 3-way business transaction where the Montreal Expos were bought by Major League Baseball. Insane. Then the guy who owned the Expos bought the Marlins. The guy who owned the Marlins bought the Red Sox. Everyone or anyone remember this unbelievable franchise swap? It doesn't happen often, but there is talk that the WNBA would consider buying the Connecticut Sun. And the question is, when buying a team, you don't want to run a team. You can ask David Stern about that. You do not want to buy a team and run it. So what do? You buy a team and then you sell it immediately to a group who will pay the expansion fee that you want as part of expansion. Can you imagine if the Mohegan Tribe proposes to the league that, hey, we want our $325 million. We need it. We've got to improve our facilities. We've got to figure out our casino. We've got to figure out our school system, our security. We want this sale to happen. You've got a bunch of people who'd like to keep the team in Connecticut, maybe Hartford, maybe even around Mohegan Sun, but no, Hartford, maybe move it to Boston. Zeigesund. Whatever you want, the Mohegan Tribe will say. You want to sell it to a Milwaukee Bucks, the former owner, Mark Lazary, do it. Move a team to Hartford. You want to sell it to Steve Pagaluca? Fine. Go to Boston. Give me the money we want. The WNBA, Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner, would speak to Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, and say, hey, why don't you go to the owners, see if we can cobble together 325 big ones, and let's take this problem as our own. Now, why is the Mohegan Tribe so frustrated? Because what the WNBA is currently doing is they feel like the league has only presented one option, and that is relocation of the team to a market that it chooses, not that the Mohegan Sun chooses, not that the Mohegan Tribe chooses, and not that the potential buyer who they had a deal in place chooses. The league offered to purchase the Sun recently for $250 million. Interesting. The problem with that is what the Mohegan Tribe wants is $325. But what the owners are saying is, wait a second, we could potentially profit here. If we can buy something for $275 and sell it for $325, that's an extra $50 million to be split amongst the owners. Does this sound familiar? Do you remember that Major League Baseball bought the Montreal Expos for $120 million and then sold them to a group out of Washington, the Lerner family, and the Expos moved to Washington, became the Washington Nationals, but Ted Lerner paid the league to buy the Montreal Expos, not the owner of the Expos, who had already sold it to baseball. And what became of that money? That money formed something called BELP, Baseball Expos LP. It was a partnership that was used to buy the Expos from our owner, and that partnership then took in a lot of money when they sold the Expos, and that money has been invested to this day. When you see baseball and they're investing in the women's softball league, they're investing maybe in God knows all the other companies they invest in when they buy the people who make the baseballs and all the different deals with New Era, all of the things they do, putting money everywhere. Just know that that money originated with when Ted Lerner bought the Nationals for $450 million from Major League Baseball, who had bought the team for $120. Major League Baseball turned a profit on behalf of its owners. It is not out of the question that that's what the WNBA is trying to do. When you have the opportunity to make a profit that you can spread around everybody, not just the current owner of the team, that is very compelling to a league that has found itself knee-deep in debt. So all the arguing that's going on right now between the owners of the Connecticut Sun and the WNBA leadership, the funny part is the individual owners don't have any power because any sale has to get approved by your partners. Relocation, partners. Expansion, partners. There is nothing you can do but come up with a marketing slogan without permission from your partners. And when they're sitting around and they're talking at these meetings, they look at the Mohegan Tribe and they say, listen, just so you're aware, it's just business. You'll do what we want. This is nothing personal.